Calista. Today I'll be interviewing someone who is very knowledgeable about a topic on dialects, and in this video I'll be asking him a few questions so we can better understand what dialect is all about. Can you introduce yourself and tell us how you became involved in teaching dialects here in Singapore?
Yeah, okay. First of all, thanks for having me. My name is Ben Tan, not to be confused with Ben 10. We are not affiliated. So, from my surname alone, Tan, you should be able to guess with some degree of accuracy what my dialect group is, right? So as it turns out, I'm Hokkien. But interestingly enough, I didn't actually acquire Hokkien growing up. Instead I acquired Cantonese because I grew up with my grandparents, so they took care of me, and so that's on my maternal side. So it's actually on my paternal line that I'm Hokkien, but since we inherit our surnames and dialect groups patrilineally, so I'm technically Hokkien, even though I'm, I guess, a quarter Cantonese.
I see. That's
so actually, so to get to how I got into teaching dialects and stuff, well, I discovered around Sec 2 that I was actually part of an endangered species, because there weren't many dialect-speaking young people, and now there are even fewer. So I decided I had to do something about it. I had to, start some kind of one-stop station for where people could come to share about their for dialects and so on. And yeah, so I did that, and then I started an Instagram account first, and then a YouTube channel, and then the following is kind of humbly sized, but it has been growing.
well. Then how do you think the Cantonese can contribute to the cultural heritage and identity of Singapore's Chinese community?
Yeah, I think, well, I can give you two reasons. I mean, first of all, the fact is that if you are actually a Cantonese person, so your Jiguan, your dialect group is actually Cantonese, then, well, it's just simply a shame if you don't know how to speak Cantonese, or you say I'm Cantonese, but all you know is Ju Chong Fan and Siu Mai and DLLM, which the expletive, which I won't say here. That's kind of like a bastardization of the culture and heritage. And you should be able to say, well, I'm able to understand the nursery rhymes that my grandparents tell me, just as their grandparents told them. And I'm able to, for example, listen to songs with my grandparents. I'm able to listen to Pun Kan Pat Leung and Shanghai Tan and so on, and sing along with them. And that's something incredibly beautiful. Now, of course, I don't want to go down the path of the sort of cultural chauvinist and say, oh, Cantonese is the best, and like Cantonese culture trumps all other cultures, and so on. And because nowadays people don't even make that distinction anymore. Like, nobody will say, oh, I'm Cantonese, I'm different from you Hokkiens and Teochews. They don't even know what their dialect group is. I mean, that's not a good thing.
What inspired you to start teaching dialects, and why do you believe it's important to preserve dialects in our society?
Yeah, well, I guess, well, to go back to the thing about being able to tell what your dialect group is just from the surname. The fact that if you're Tan, you're Teochew or Hokkien, if you're Chan, you're Cantonese, if you're Chin, you're Hakka, and so on. Well, I realized that a lot of people at my age didn't actually know that was a thing, that was possible. A lot of people didn't even know where their names came from. I had this friend who, his Chinese name was romanized from Hokkien, I think, and then he looked at that and he said, I don't know what that is. It's not my name. It's not my Chinese name. I don't know where that comes from. And then I was like, oh no. It was quite shocking. And other sorts of things like Ang Mo Kio, people don't know why it's not called Hong Mao Qiao instead, which it should be if the romanization came from Mandarin. But anyway, so those are some of the little things which made me think I was very lucky to have learned dialects as a child, even if it's just Cantonese. But I really had to share some of this knowledge with others. And I decided the best place to start was Instagram, because that's where all the young people are. So, part of what drove that also was in secondary school when I was about 14 years old. The government produced this bunch of dialect shows. Like, one of them was called 欢喜就好, 花喜丢后, and they had Jack Neo return to play Liang Si Mei and so on. And those were completely in Hokkien and Cantonese and Teochew, and those are supposed to be infotainment shows for the elderly, but I happen to watch them even though I'm not that old. Yeah, so through that I also learned Hokkien. 所以當今我也會曉講福建話了，特別唔係咁好啦，講好會更好啊！我個廣東話咧一直以來都係好精準嘅，有啲方面嚟講咧，仲精準過香港人嘅廣府話啊。So that's one of those things, right? Just to translate, I said that my Cantonese is sometimes more accurate than Hong Kong speakers' Cantonese, and that's actually one of the reasons why we need to preserve it, because the Singaporean Cantonese captures a lot of vestiges of how Cantonese used to be, which some of those properties even Hong Kong Cantonese doesn't capture, Malaysian Cantonese doesn't capture, and so yeah, that's one of the reasons. Now of course, when people ask these kinds of questions, and I reply with, because it's important to capture these parts of our culture and this part of our heritage and so on, they can always ask the next question, which is, why is it important to preserve culture and heritage? Which, I think if this interrogation keeps going on ad infinitum, you can't really find an answer. And some people seek to get out of this infinite regress by kind of appealing to things outside of the subject itself. And it's the same sort of thing that happens with justifying why literature is important or why the arts are important. They just jump to something outside, like, the arts are important because you learn history, because you learn to empathize and so on. And I think that's kind of a cop-out. And I would say, with regards to dialects, why can't we just say we want to preserve it because it's beautiful, because it's so heartwarming to say that I know the language of my ancestors, and it's such a miracle that I exist, and what a privilege it is to share something with someone who existed before you. So to me, that kind of sentimentalist reasoning is part of my personal reason. But of course, if I were to tell a policymaker what good does dialect bring to us, then of course I have to be more utilitarian.
Have there been any challenges you faced when teaching Cantonese? And how do you address the declining usage of dialects among younger Singaporeans?
Of course, we can talk about the basic sort of challenges that come with teaching a language, but I think there are broader issues at play here, and there are things like the fact that people think that Cantonese and other dialects are some kind of lower quality versions of Mandarin, and because it's given the name dialect, so people think that Mandarin is the formal language, but Cantonese is like a kind of fake version, fake Mandarin. And yeah, so I've tried to dispel this myth on my Instagram account and on YouTube as well. And the fact that the reason Mandarin is treated as a standard language is because it was chosen as a standard language. And over the course of Chinese history, it has always been the language that is spoken by the region in which the government is situated. So that ends up becoming the Guanhua, right? And so because the Guan in English they're actually called Mandarins, which is why the language is called Mandarin. So it is somewhat arbitrary. There's nothing specifically better or worse about Cantonese or Mandarin and so on. And in Singapore, of course, a large part of it has been political, right? I mean, some of the linguists would say the only difference between a language and a dialect is that a language is a dialect with an army and a navy, and so it's just political power that puts it there. Yeah, and in Singapore, the government has a large part to play in that, in the Speak Mandarin campaign of 1979, and in kind of contraposing dialects and Mandarin, so that in order to increase Mandarin, we have to decrease dialects and so on. Yeah, and so I try to dispel the myth that there's any inherent difference or superiority between them. Now, another reason is that some people, or especially some parents, I would say that it's a bad idea to teach children dialects because it would take up space in their brain, and they would have less space for English and Mandarin. Neuroscience tells us that that's not actually how brains work, and actually I have a brain here. Yeah, and so this is my brain. Well, not my brain. Mine is inside here, I hope. And so we know that language is sort of localized in the left hemisphere, right? And even that is kind of a oversimplification. But we know that the human brain doesn't have a fixed capacity. At least we haven't figured out what that is yet. And probably nobody will hit that fixed limit and say, oh no, there's no more space in my brain, I can't put stuff in it, right? So this idea that learning one language takes up memory space or impedes the learning of another language. That's just not true. Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone who is just starting to learn Cantonese, especially if they have little to no background in dialects?
Well, I would say if you're looking to learn Cantonese formally, then maybe sign up for a class with learndialect.sg, which is this excellent organization which teaches dialects. It's started by this lovely couple who I've met before, and yeah, they're very enthusiastic about teaching it. They offer classes in Hokkien, Teochew, and Cantonese. And yeah, if you're looking for organizations are out there, if you just look for them, I can also recommend that if you want to look for some dictionaries in Cantonese and so on, you can go to Bras Basah, the amazing place full of books, and you can find some Chinese bookstore there that sells these things. Well, if you're looking for even more informal ways to just immerse yourself in the language and acquire it in a more organic way, then maybe consider watching some of our locally produced dialect shows like Hua Hi Tio Ho. Yeah, immersion is very good because, as you know, the way children acquire languages is they just get bombarded by all the stimuli and then all of a sudden they know how to speak it, which is amazing. If you're older than 7 years old, unfortunately you can't do that, but if you are still in secondary school and thereabouts, there's still a bit of that potential. But even for adults, immersion works wonders. So yeah, get yourself some stimuli.
How has social media influenced the way people learn and engage with Cantonese?
What I would say is that social media has made it incredibly easy for information to be disseminated. And so you can also insert a lot of multimedia into it. So, for instance, I recently made a video about Aogang and why we pronounce Aogang as Aogang and not Hougang. And I was able to insert a lot of snippets of videos of people actually saying it. And so this is one advantage over the traditional methods where you would just use, you just write it out in a book and so on. And that's not really all that informative if you just read words on a page. But if you get to listen to people say it, and if you have someone like me, who actually stitches together all the videos to draw comparisons, then yeah, a lot more can be learned from that. And so it has really opened up this new avenue of sort of multimedia engagement. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your input in this interview. And yeah, really nice to have you here to speak about this topic on dialects as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope you have learned something new from this interview, and thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. See you next time.